Craig, if you could come back to your seat. We've got our council workshop on the Citizens' Assembly. This was obviously one of the things that we decided as an elected member group that we wanted to have to give everyone the opportunity to get up to speed and be on the same page, to understand the process that was undertaken, but also to learn about, I suppose, the makeup of our Citizens' Assembly and understand better the recommendations that were produced as part of that project. So I'll hand over to Thunis, Jess and Danica.
Tēnā koutou katoa, councillors. Just wanting to, I'm just going to say a few words before Jess will take over, but it's just, you will remember that a meeting or so ago, the report was pulled for the Citizens' Assembly that went to council, and so this workshop is to brief council on what has happened and how did we get to this point, as well as what was the outcome of the process that was followed. I also just want to thank Jess and the team, and we've also got some of the members of the Citizens' Assembly with us today, so want to welcome them, and but also thank them all for a good job that they've done. So over to Jess.
Tēnā koutou katoa. Koutou kua tai mai nei e tēnei wā. Haere mai ki te whakarongo, haere mai ki te pātai, haere mai ki te hāpai i te kaupapa o te wā. Ko wai ahau, ko Jess Suter-Barron taku ingoa. I'm Jess Suter-Barron, I'm the Communications and Engagement Team Leader here at Napier City Council. I have with me Danica Rio, who's our Senior Advisor for Corporate Planning and is a big part of the setting of the long-term plan, and Thunis Cloyter, as you know, Executive Director of Community Services, who's been the sponsor for this project. Also in the room, we're really lucky to have some of the members of our Citizens' Assembly. We have 40 participants, but we have a few of them here today, so a big mihi to them for coming. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to run through quite a lot of learning, and I have colour-coded it. So we've got 3 chunks of learning, and I would love it if at the end of each chunk we have a breath for questions. I hope that's not too kindergartenish, but it actually helped me organise my thoughts. So we'll look at the background of Citizens' Assembly, and this is really a case of going back before we go forward. I know that for many of you this is new territory, and so I want to make sure that you have an open ability to ask questions when there's gaps in your knowledge. And then from there we'll go forward into the process that we undertook, and then at the end we'll look at what some of those next steps might be, and that will be a great time to hear from you about what you're thinking for next steps for us as officers. So a Citizens' Assembly is actually a very ancient form of asking the community what they think on a subject, but it's recently, say in the last 5 years, become something that councils and other community groups have looked at in this bigger idea of deliberative democracy and qualitative community engagement. So what does engagement look like past surveys? And there's been lots of conversation in local and central government about the future of engagement, and some of that is known as deliberative democracy. What we did in this particular case is we went out to our whole community in a myriad of different ways, and we had 652 applicants to sit on the Citizens' Assembly, and I'll talk a little bit more about how we got those people and what we then did. But it's really an opportunity for a group of people to listen to very rich, in-depth information on a particular subject, and to ask questions and ask the council to bring them subject matter experts that they want to hear from. So not just what we dial up and bring in, but also it's a very comprehensive two-way dialogue between the community and a council. Throughout the whole process, we used an advisory group. We called it our design group. And on that were councillors, some senior officers, members of our disability community, members of our older community, our youth council, our multicultural association and Mana Whenua, and they shadowed and supported at every step in our process. We had lots of meetings with them, very open dialogue on particular aspects of the Citizens' Assembly. I should say that throughout this, there is a pull between the almost academic approach to deliberative democracy and what councils and council officers are actually dealing with. So we wanted to make sure that, yes, we were doing best practice in deliberative democracy, but also we were creating something for Napier and with Napier people in mind. Really, what we were trying to do, and I think I can speak a little bit to what some of our elected members had in mind when we began these conversations, is different ways that we can open up community engagement. And I should say that a Citizens' Assembly is the behemoth of deliberative democracy. There are about 40 other methods, and I suppose it's a spectrum from a survey to a Citizens' Assembly. There's a whole lot of ways that we can engage the community in a really open, two-way approach so that we build that trust and understanding, not just about the subject that we're asking them to deliberate on, but also council processes, and that's been an interesting part of this exercise, to see how the community's understanding of council and council process has been enriched. There are lots of benefits, and part of that is building that inclusive two-way dialogue between the council and the community, which is something that we are exploring and looking at different ways of doing throughout our engagement offering in Napier. I'm really conscious that I'm whipping through this. It is on the hub, and I'm always really receptive to any questions you may have, so I do appreciate it's a lot of information. With the Citizens' Assembly, we had two guardrails, and most deliberative democracy has this in one form or another. The first guardrail was this remit, and it was carefully written by a collection of officers, people who are experts in deliberative democracy and elected members. And it's a two-part remit, as you'll see. And the design group had a big part in making sure that we got this right. The two parts are what kind of aquatic facility do we need in the future? And it did ask people to look quite a long way out into the future. And I can talk a little bit about the timing later. And then the second part is around where that aquatic facility should be located. And any of you who have been in Napier for any length of time will know that that's already had a lot of thinking and a lot of dialogue given to it. So there's two parts. The second guardrail is what's known as the public promise, or the promise to the people. And that was made on the 31st of July. And it looks quite overwhelming. But when we dive into it, it's a very achievable promise that stays true to the intention of the Citizens' Assembly and also to the needs of the long-term plan. So we'll look at it closely. The first step is to publish the recommendation. So the Assembly met over 4 sessions, and I'll look at the process in a bit, but out of those 4 sessions, they came up with a recommendation that responded directly to the remit. We published that unedited on our website the next day. So that is what the first part of the promise said. The second part is around making sure that there's representatives of the Assembly at the meeting when the council decides what their next steps are. So that is the meeting that we rethought and has become this workshop, and I'm hoping that meeting will fall into the first part of next year, and we'll invite representatives. The next 4 steps are really things that need to happen by officers as a piece of work in itself, so a project in itself. They are really looking at closely at every part of the recommendation and acknowledging how we can respond to those and what the appropriate form of response is. The decision about whether to keep the aquatic facility and its needs in the long-term plan. Some sort of response or decision about what we do in terms of what kind of aquatic facility the Citizens' Assembly has recommended. And that sixth point, which is about where the aquatic facility should be, is probably, well, absolutely the part that became a lot more complex before it becomes simple. And I'll look at that a bit more too. So that's what the public promise says that was agreed on in the resolution on the 31st of July. They're the green slides. We'll move on to blue slides. Does anybody have any questions for those slides? Councillor Curran.
Not a question, but a comment.
Yes.
Just to reiterate to some of our new friends that those things came through council. So the guardrails, the remit, etc., that was approved by council. It wasn't just the design group or anything like that. We followed a formal process around it.
Thanks. The public promise, was that actually eventually a decision of council?
Yes. Yeah, that was a resolution of council on the 31st of July.
All of the points in the promise?
Yes.
Okay.
So I'm going to talk next about the process for this specific Citizens' Assembly that we undertook. The first thing we did is we went out very broad across a lot of different channels in a sort of a surround sound approach to make sure that we had raised the profile of what we were doing to as many of our community as possible. So we went out to every household. We went out across traditional social media, through op-eds, through pop-ups at things like the rugby and the Sunday market, anything we could think of. We threw a lot of man hours and brain at it. And from that, we got 652 applicants. So that's the recruitment bit. The next thing that happened is a really brainiac algorithm thing where we put in the demographics of Napier slightly skewed towards youth and non-Pākehā, just slightly. Then we put all the applicants' names into that, and through a process called sortition, it comes out with 40 people that together make up the demographics of Napier. Then we went through and we telephoned all of them to do a pre-selection interview. Through that process, some people dropped out, and I should say that the main reason was the time. That they were being asked to give 40 plus hours of their time. As soon as someone dropped out, we put all the names back in, and it's sorted just for the person who dropped out. So for example, if someone non-Pākehā, non-Māori, male under 24 dropped out, we sorted again just for that demographic. So that in itself is a very labour-intensive piece of work, and we finished it by the skin of our teeth. We had 40 signed up, pre-interviews done, ready to go at 2 p.m. on the 3rd of September, and the date sticks with me because at 5 p.m. on the 3rd of September we had our orientation evening. And it was at that orientation evening that we held at Puke Moki Moki Marae that I realised that we really did have Napier in a room. I don't think I've ever seen a group of people so diverse and from every corner of our community. And that orientation evening then kicked off our process, which began for real on the 13th of September with our first session of discovery. And then for 2 Saturdays in a row, we gave them a lot of information. And I was amazed at how the subject matter experts were so giving of their knowledge, particularly our external experts. They were very open about how much it costs to build a pool, how much it costs to run a pool, what kinds of pools our community already has, or water spaces that they already have, and what the need really is. And to take a group of 40 people who have never thought, or some of them will have thought about it before, but have never been given that amount of information on a very specific subject, to take them from cold to having very rich, informed conversations with those same subject matter experts was really remarkable. So that was the discovery phase. The second 2 sessions, which were also on Saturdays, so full days on those Saturdays, were around deliberation, and that's slowly but surely coming to a point of recommendations and actually writing the recommendations. There was a lot of discourse, a lot of trade-offs, and a lot of going back to that library of information that we'd given them and asking questions. And so between the Saturdays, officers were doing a lot of work to answer questions that had come up either the Saturday before or during the week when they'd sent us questions. There was, I think, 7 rounds of writing those recommendations, and every time the recommendation was written, it would be read through, it would be presented to the rest of the group, and then the group would vote on it, not yes and no, but a 5 points on a spectrum of whether they loved it or whether they really needed it to be rethought. And we went through that process many times. And by that stage, it was very much run by the participants. And little bit by little bit, our facilitators, who are very experienced in this method of community engagement, stepped back little bit by little bit, and the participants really took on that huge, they felt this huge responsibility of having to come up with something in the way of a recommendation. So this is really difficult to read, I know. This is who made up the Citizens' Assembly. So this is the participants. And I've drilled down to some particularly interesting numbers, but it is all there for you. Of the 40, 26 were homeowners, so therefore ratepayers. 30 Pākehā, 12 Māori, 7 other. Now, I know that doesn't add up to 40, but that's because people are more than one thing. 26 people working, 11 people under the age of 24, and 6 over the age of 64. Of particular note, one of our participants who has lived in Napier most of his life and around the area of Onekawa for, I think, 63 years. So just in that one person, we had this incredibly rich knowledge of Napier and a real memory for the way people have used particular sites, particularly Onekawa, but have used spaces, public spaces, have engaged with those spaces, have moved through particular areas of that, what we think of as that third place between home and work. So a real richness in the room. Oh, this is my video that I made. It's 5 minutes long. Am I in charge of the loudness of it? That sounds like it's someone's phone.
It is. Sorry. It's behind you.
Yes, oh yes.
Greg spotted in that photo that we think one of the gentlemen.
Yeah, pretty sure
was
one of the
here
gentlemen
early.
was here earlier. The gentleman that was in the middle of that photo was here earlier.
Yes. Is he here?
No, he
No,
had to
because
go,
it was
'cause we-
excluded.
It was public
Fortunately,
excluded.
Oh, because it's running late. Okay, that's fine. I'm sure we'll get an
No,
email.
he was here.
He was here real early.
He was
Like,
here
well,
for the
before the
council
council
meeting.
meeting.
Greg,
actually.
Oh,
I
right.
spoke to him out there in the lobby. He wasn't here for this.
Oh,
Okay, sweet,
He
great.
thought he was coming to a council meeting.
No, sweet.
Okay.
Oh,
Looked very similar to that dude. Anyway,
Okay.
sorry, carry on.
So what I've done here is it's a 5-minute video. What we did is after, we throughout this whole process, we really wanted to be open and transparent with the rest of the community for a couple of reasons. One, because that's the right and true thing to do, but also the participants themselves really felt this weight of responsibility, and so they really I think, supported our need for this accountability for the community to see what we were doing. So after every one of the sessions, we put together a video that was the highlights of the day. This is a cut down version of those 4 videos.
I wanted to be a part of the Citizens Assembly because I care a lot about the Napier community, and I'd really like to contribute to making Napier a more accessible place for everyone, and helping out.
I think I'm quite excited that it's a really diverse group. Everyone's got very different shared experiences, and from there hopefully we can put together a pretty decent proposal. Yeah, it's fascinating, it really is.
It's a reminder of how many different opinions and voices we have in our community, and so that's been quite good because you can kind of be in an isolated sort of a cipher with your own beliefs and social media and that sort of thing, so it's going to get in the context where there's all sorts of opinions.
Youth voice is really important in Citizens Assembly because we're developing recommendations for an aquatic facility that's not just going to be for the people that are living now, but for people that aren't even born yet.
We can have all these big dreams about what we want, but will the facility be something that is going to put our future generations in debt, or is it going to be a gift to them? I learnt how important it is for us to make those sustainable decisions.
Heard from a broad range of community users today, from Learn to Swim, Plunkett for babies through to adults, sportsmen who are developing and excelling in their fields. People use it for recreational leisure use as well. Rehabilitation is also common. A gap, I think, is probably the accessibility in the facilities.
How to make the facility as accessible as possible to as many people that live in Napier as possible. It's not just about transport, it's about age groups and affordability. Having somewhere that's affordable for our young people to get to and enjoy, also for our elderly, and also for people who have physical disabilities, for example. If we can solve the question for those guys, then I think we solve it for everybody. And that's really a target we're aiming for.
Instead of standing on the sidelines, having a main grain, I want to get involved and get involved in the process. So yeah, that's why I signed up.
We're basically taking the information that has been shared with us and broken into groups, and we all have different focus areas. So there's about 6 different focus areas, basically coming up with recommendations and presenting back to the group. And it's an opportunity to kind of test that back with the group, whether they're largely happy with it or unhappy, and the reasons why, so we can further refine those recommendations.
I find it really quite informative, quite interesting. It does feel a little bit like under-informed, but also at the same time it's like a lot of information, so it's quite confusing to feel.
Well, I think it's good because we're now deliberating and we're trying to understand what we need, what the main points are, as opposed to all of the information that's been loaded into our brains.
I like that it's something everyone cares about. We all have opinions or ideas and stuff like that, and it's like working together.
What I'm enjoying most is being able to contribute to Napier because I'm only a fairly new resident. Been only here for nearly 2 years, so I thought it would be a good way to see what I can do within the community.
Yeah, we've got a good group of people, 40 of Napier residents, all from different backgrounds, different age groups, different perspectives, and their input is really going to benefit Napier as a whole.
A bit of a roller coaster. It's had its ups and downs the whole way through. A lot of information overload and sort of taking all that in. I quite enjoyed the deliberation last week. Went away, got feedback from friends and family, and have kind of made that my mission to come back and see areas that were a bit ambiguous, I guess.
Been hugely informative and rewarding. Been a great group of people to work with, and I've been really impressed with the approach they've taken. It's been a real best for community approach.
There was the pressure on us to be able to come up with recommendations, and we weren't all confident that we had the information to be able to make some of those decisions, but we have to remind ourselves that we are a community voice and we're not technical experts, and a lot of the feedback will be taken on board.
In the time available, we've come up with some really compelling guiding principles to help the council apply to finding what the ultimate Napier Aquatic Centre will look like. We've avoided being prescriptive, but we've looked at what a Napier community would look for in the community centre like the Aquatic Centre, and we believe we've come up with a set of guiding principles that will give the council a direction and confidence to use to find that ultimate answer.
The thing I've enjoyed most about the Citizens Assembly is meeting 39 other people from really various walks of lives. It's been fascinating, great people, interesting conversations, and just learning a little bit more about people and obviously the people that live here in Napier as well.
I think it's a really empowering opportunity for the council to engage with its community. It's given us the freedom to operate. We've been allowed to range wherever we've wanted to go, ask whatever questions. The management approach has been one of openness and transparency. As long as it maintains that level of integrity, I think a Citizens Assembly is a fantastic way of bringing the community closer to the kind of decisions councils need to make. I think it's a really important part of the democratic process. It's representative, and the collective thinking has been really outstanding. So I think it's a great way of dealing with complex issues.
So I'm just going to touch on briefly about how the recommendations, how they can serve the community further. I think we were asked many times during the Citizens Assembly, is what we come up with going to be in the plan? And there is a step between those two things that's really important. What we've done with the Citizens Assembly is very much about pre-engagement. And it gives us a really strong view of what the community wants to then base our engagement with the rest of community on. We always do pre-engagement, especially for very big things like the long-term plan. This gives us a mandate to say, this is what representatives of your community have proposed. What do you think? So that's probably the number one thing that the recommendations can give us, because it really has that shared ownership of the decision making about the future of the pool. These are just some more testimonials. One of the things we've done after the Citizens Assembly is go back to the participants quite a few weeks later and ask them what the experience was like for them when they had some time to reflect on it. So these are just some quotes from that. And this is some of the figures around it. The final report is still to come from that feedback survey that we did afterwards. But the majority of people did find it was really an effective way to learn about something and to bring those perspectives together. And I think that gives us even more, it gives even more weight to the idea of it being pre-engagement, to say to the rest of the community, this is where we've got to on this subject. This is also from that survey. Those surveys are, they're not the greatest way to find out what people think, but they're one way.
Oh, excuse me.
Yes.
I note that there was about a third that felt there was insufficient information given.
Yes.
Has the type of information been identified and what could be provided? Has that been noted at all?
Yes, we really knew that was happening as it was happening, and it was really around the locations piece. Is this a good time to talk a bit? Yeah. Shall I talk a bit more about the locations piece now? I do have a slide coming up on it, but I think that's the big bit. So let's look at the recommendations. So this is, are there any other questions about the process? Sorry, it's a really good question. Are there any other questions about the process? No? So the recommendation is in two parts. The first part is around what kind of facility, and it's very clear there was that this is the recommendation, community focused, very much about leisure, recreation, health and wellbeing. There was a lot of information given to the Assembly about water spaces in Hawke's Bay. We did a tour of many of the water spaces that exist now. Lots of conversation about what the gaps and opportunities are, how much things cost to run. And this is very much responding to the wealth of information we had and the ability for the participants to ask lots of questions. The second part is around the location. When the work on location was done way before the Citizens Assembly, and I should say way before many of the people working on the Citizens Assembly worked for council, there were 2 locations that were proposed, Onekawa, where it is now, and Prebinson Drive. As officers, when we looked at that information, we didn't feel comfortable that the information was comprehensive and robust enough to go to the community and say, these are the 2 locations. Because actually, when we looked at it, the type of pool changes the type of location. Many things have changed in Napier, and there's a lot of locations that have opened up that weren't considered the first time round. So we, doing due diligence on those, we actually showed the participants 18 locations.
But there were 18 locations previously analysed anyway, as part of that elimination that came down to those final 2.
Yeah, yes.
So are they the same 18?
From my understanding, because I was looking at it with really new eyes, my understanding is it's pretty much every reserve that is big enough, plus Prebinson Drive. When we looked at the information that had either excluded or included a site, a lot of it was very subjective. For example, there were things like accessible to population. And the question was, which population? Parklands has changed. There are different suburbs have got more people in them. So it felt really thin to just go to them with the 2 locations. So we went with 18. And we didn't have a lot of information about all 18. We had a lot of information about Prebinson Drive. We had a lot of information about Onekawa. But the others, not a lot of information. So we gave them knowledge about feasibility studies, how much they cost, how long they take. And we talked a little bit about what those sites offer in terms of access, like when they have to be accessed through a residential road as opposed to a main road, how many schools they're near, what kinds of neighbourhoods they're near. We did all of that work, but we couldn't narrow it anymore. And in terms of feasibility studies like groundworks, geotechnical knowledge, we didn't have that. So the feeling that we weren't giving them enough information is absolutely correct. Is accurate information. We didn't have enough information. So what we asked of them is to recommend the type of site. And in that recommendation, they do name 3 sites. And the 3 sites they name are Park Island, Marewa Reserve, and Onekawa itself. And there were still questions around the geotechnical information of Onekawa and how much it would cost to prepare the land to then build on it. And the thing about Prebinson Drive that they spoke to was the fact that we could realise money from that site, because that's the one site that's been zoned commercial residential or commercial? The others are all reserves, so there's not as much option to sell them. Yeah.
There's a lot of history to this, and I've been kind of following it since 2016. So there's a lot that's going on. In 2018, there was a move to the Greenfield site at Prebinson because it was a clean site. They could start afresh. But the major concern for that move, it was based around the potential contamination at the Onekawa site, and obviously the geotech reporting.
Yes.
And but basically they had to go out for independent assessments and independent reporting. Has there been any summary or presentation on the contamination sides of the Onekawa site?
To the Citizens Assembly? Yes, so we gave them all the information we could find. Yes.
And geotech, or? The
geotech that we could find as well. We gave them open access to everything, and we used We used an AI tool so that they could search within those documents because those documents are dense.
Huge.
So we, the facilitators we worked with developed a way for them to very easily search for what they were looking for in those dense documents.
Could we have those referenced on the hub at all? So we could actually easily find them as well and look them over?
Well, yes, we can, because they are in the public
Yeah,
documents.
they're buried pretty deep, but if they're openly accessible, would be great, thanks.
The question that we were left with the Assembly that we couldn't easily answer because we didn't know is the site of Onekawa where the netball courts is. And that when we did the site visit there was the feeling that could we build a new pool where the netball courts are and move the netball courts? That came up. Reading the recommendation, I think the majority feel that Onekawa is really a great site for the aquatic facility. And if there's a way of building a new aquatic facility there while keeping the old one open, then I think reading the recommendation that would be the preference, because we did have a lot of conversation about rebuilding the existing facility, and the information that we were given was that would be a lot more expensive than building new. Yeah. Are there any other questions on that location piece? Because I know that's the big one.
But it went to the High Court about that.
No,
Yes.
we're aware.
Yeah, the Onekawa site was deemed completely unsuitable in that court decision.
So the other two spaces in the recommendation, they give those as good examples for what they'd be looking for in a site, and that's Park Island because of its proximity to other sports codes and its accessibility to a lot of the population, and Mārewa because of where it sits and the amount of space.
I don't think that.
Yeah. The High Court did not say Onekawa was totally unsuitable. That did not happen. There were sites in Onekawa that were much better than others. In my recollection, I don't know if the others agree, the netball court site was one of them. One of the biggest things against it was closer to neighbours was the biggest thing. Because the netball site is not where the dump was.
Yes.
It's where the Holt's sawmill was. So, I mean, I remember this all quite vividly because it was we were within we weren't on council that long when we went into a lot of depth. But that High Court case was to stop the pool being built at Princeton Drive.
It was questioning the process that was undertaken.
Yeah.
That was what it was. It was process.
Consultation process that was questioned.
And what was the outcome of that? GK, what was the outcome of that?
The complainants said that we hadn't, and there was, I can't remember exactly, 8 or 9 points saying that they alleged the council had not consulted. The court found that the council had consulted correctly.
Correct. But it wasn't about the sites.
The other point just on that is that the Pemberton Drive site is not currently all available for sale.
We only had the information that we were getting from officers working in this space.
Well, there was a resolution, which all the officers should be well aware of, that excluded the part that had previously been allocated for the development of the pool. We didn't say it could be sold initially until an alternative site for a pool had been located. So only the piece heading back down towards Tamatea was available for sale by the investment company. The other piece, correct me if I'm wrong.
Basically separated by those big power lines right through it.
It was basically separated, yeah.
But
So-
what it means for the Assembly is that meant that site was one of the sites of consideration that they were able to assess. Yep, cool.
So I just put the slide back up. This is the promise. And I'll go back to it, but really what as officers, what we now need a steer on is we would like to bring this to the council meeting, and we will be asking for a steer on what we do next about those 4 parts of the promise. In terms of timing, in last year and this year we've done essential works on the Napier Aquatic Facility, as you know, and we've put $4 million into it. And that's given us 8 to 10 more years of life for that facility. That it feels like a long way away, but actually it needs to then go on the long-term plan, which will begin preparing at the end or middle of next year. So I just want to put that there so you're aware of timing. But the next step is really for you to let us know, as officers, what you want us to do with the rest of this project. Sorry, Councillor Crown, if I've got that wrong.
No, that's right. But we've got a bunch of people sitting behind you. They're the people that we made the promise with.
Yes.
And I would really like to hear from them as to what their expectations are of us in fulfilling that promise. Because I think that will help us guide the direction that we give you guys.
Well, I would like to say that the Brebbinson road site came up and it was against the wishes of Napier that it stopped going there. And I still think it's the wrong place to have it. If it only cover site where the netball courts are, I'm sure it was not contaminated by anything there. It was only contaminated where the pool was properly now or Cannon Road. And that would be the ideal site where you can build a new pool and still have the old one there still operating until the other one comes along. Otherwise, Park Island would be the next best choice with everything around it.
Could you bring the promise up for us, Jess, so that our participants can perhaps speak to what we agreed to do? If anyone else has any feedback that they'd like to give us, that would be awesome.
No, I think I'm quite okay speaking about the mic. I think there's very aware that we made no decisions. We very much are providing a perspective and information for you folks to make decisions with. However, I can guarantee to you that 40 people really cared over that time, over those 4 weeks. I think at a time where trust in social institutions is eroding, to know that 40 people cared enough about their community to give their time and their expertise and their understanding is a really powerful thing. And it's not only those 40 people, but each one of those 40 people who was deeply invested then went home and talked to their friends and their whānau and everybody else around them to gain more of a perspective. So yes, while this is a recommendation from 40 random people from the street, it's actually a little bit more than that. I really do think. So I guess when you say what do we want to happen next, the first piece is take it really seriously, because a lot of time and effort and work, not just for myself, but also for the people who work for council and the people around the house and myself, a huge amount of work and input, so I really do think it should be taken seriously. And then also kind of, I guess, really to the intent that it was written, which is a really difficult thing to do. I understand that. But I really do think that for everyone when you understand kind of how it was written.
Thank you for that. 40 members really engaged, and I commend you on your work. In 2018, there was a 7,000 petition that was presented to council to retain and expand on the Onikawa site, 7,000. So there's a lot of people out there that are got a vested interest in their pool.
I completely agree with you, and I think that goes to show that I think we're both moving in a similar direction. I think at any point in time when you have people that really understand right ones to be listening to. It's very easy to read a headline or read a perspective and then make a decision from that, maybe a little informed. I really do think that what you've got in front of you is an informed piece of work.
Thanks, Hamish.
So what you're saying is you agree with the other gentleman that spoke first?
It's, I think, in terms of the site, are you discussing?
Yeah.
Yeah. If a new pool could be put on the Onekawa site, I'd be very happy with that. I think that's a fantastic outcome. I think putting in a Prevention Drive would perhaps be a bit of a mistake. However, it's the only place to put a pool, is the only place to put a pool. So there's a touch of realism that goes along with what I would like to see. Also the cost factor. If it's hugely expensive to put a pool in Onekawa, maybe it's not the decision to be made. But again, I'm not a financial advisor. I'm just a person. You know, what role do I have in making that decision, right? But I'd like to see it in Onekawa.
Well, that's really good. Commend you guys for what you've done.
Sorry for me, just on that note, was that a huge part of the discussion about the extra money and so forth? And did that change anyone's opinion on?
Yeah, 100% it does. But it's really difficult to make decisions without any facts and figures and understanding. A lot of these discussions came down to that geotechnical side of things. I'm not a geotechnological geologist. No, I can't make those decisions. So all we can do is put forward a proposal that allows you folks to then, or the officers, to find people that can find that information. So yes, that money was considered. I think that understanding that you could put a really basic pool there that costs, I suppose, around $30 million. Now, if no one goes to that pool, is that a waste of money? Probably is, isn't it? However, if you put a water slide on the side of it, it might cost $5 million more. You're certainly getting a lot more work out of it than the $5 million cost. So it's that laws of diminishing returns piece in there as well. A bigger conversation than just cost this much. It gives more to the
Welcome to our conundrum. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Graham.
And thank you for your service, everyone, too.
Yeah. I don't think we are here to litigate the where and all those sorts of things. What we're here for is to actually look at the process and then the recommendations. And what I'm going to suggest, and it'd be very nice to hear from you again, is that the first 5 parts of that up there are not a problem. And the only one that we can't really deal with is incorporate the Assembly's preferred sites into planning subject to confirmation of feasibility. Because at the moment, well, we could incorporate 3 sites into that planning. But the main part is, do we continue down that process and basically use your advice on the features and the purpose of the pool to brief, and the design brief. So, when we first talked about the purpose of this was, well, let's do the what do we want before we think about the where. And so I think we've got clear direction of what. The where is not quite so clear, but we can accept the recommendations that that the Assembly is currently making, subject to the appropriate site. And job's done. Bring the paper.
It's that it will inform the project plan. And so, that's easily within
the reason of having this
the realms of
workshop
reasonableness.
was so that the councillors who hadn't been through the process understand it.
Understand it, yeah.
And we've got to that stage.
So the point for us as councillors, are you happy for us to bring this report to council? Because that was what we were trying to do the last meeting. And now you've been briefed. Do you have enough information, understanding the process that was followed, and then the recommendations that came out of it? And please keep in mind, these are recommendations. And the point is that we will do the due diligence as we are doing the plan, the work. So the site will be included as that as well, So Onekawa will be taken through that that process of determining is it the best site.
I think the principles that they provided us with, whilst not a single site,
they will just be applied to the sites that are possible, you know, and then we can compare cost against each site.
Exactly.
You know, so based on those principles, which are sound in my mind. Yeah.
And I think further to that is that this was a method of pre-engagement. We still have to go out for engagement.
Yeah.
So there's still another step, guardrail, whatever you like to call it, in going forward. And at the moment, we've got money at year 8.
Around year 7, 8, yeah. Yeah, well, it's over 3 years.
3 years, yeah.
Yeah, so a period. So that's something that we have to consider whether it stays in our long-term plan or is modified when we get into that process next year. So I think the purpose of today was to bring all the new councillors up to speed, give them the opportunity to ask questions, happy with the process. Now we move the recommendations forward.
I think the Assembly said not a 50-metre pool, but a 25-metre pool.
Yeah. And that's what we're talking about. Which is smart. Because right back in 2013, 16, we actually knew we didn't need a 50-metre pool. Although there was a lot of people saying we should have one. Because we knew that they were going to build one at the sports park. We don't need 2 within 10 k's of each other. The only thing, we're not going to litigate the whole thing. We've got to be careful because I know there's some things happening in Hastings as well.
Yeah.
More pools shutting than opening.
Furnace. My problem is that the current assets have got an 8 to 10 year lifespan still left in them. And I think it's too early to go to full on project planning, considering that we still don't know what site. We've got 3 potential sites, when we don't really have to do that for maybe another 5 years. I think we're hitting the go button way too early.
Councillor, thank you for the question, but it's this needs to go to the long-term plan.
Yes.
And we need to put a project plan forward with recommendations, and it will be part of what's been said here, plus whatever else we need to put in. And that needs to be discussed as part of the long-term plan as a total. It's not to say that this is a go. This is part of the process. So if council comes to the point of deciding, council will make the same decision as any other project. And from an affordability viewpoint, we'll make the same, have to put that on top of it and decide then if they're going to go ahead or not. But the point is that we do have a definite life on that pool. And we're saying 8 to 10 years, maybe it can go another year or 2. We can't give any assurances, and that will then affect the opening or the closing of the pool, of course.
I mean, technically the main structure, the pool structure itself, being a concrete pool, has probably got another 25 years left in it. But it's the surrounding the building, the structures and that around the building that are going to be the lifetime limits. They'll be the first failure in times. So you need to have an analysis of what's going to fail first, how much it's going to cost to keep them going, and hopefully realise the full lifetime of the main asset, which is the concrete pool.
Thank you. Yes.
I would like to see concept plans before a full-out project plan.
I think that maybe
that's a given.
The language that has been used in the presentation probably represents the concept idea rather than project from a technical perspective.
Yeah.
But I think the point is that the timing of our conversation with the community and amongst ourselves is driven by the need to have the budget in the long-term plan. So that's what we're, the timing's driven by. The level of detail, I'm sure that our team will bring back to us, and, along with Clibby and his team, looking at some of the asset management stuff as well, will give us an idea of the level of detail that they're able to present to us in time for us to have that conversation for the long-term plan.
Thanks. I totally agree that we need to be planning now to put money away in the piggy bank. Definitely. Yes.
Yeah, so that's what we're driven by for this conversation.
Yeah, can I suggest that this is probably for a different workshop? Today's more about the citizens' assembly part of things, and we've got our community here to be part of that, not perhaps part of where we're heading.
Thank you.
Can I ask just one more question? With the data that you've got from the Citizens Assembly, can you mine that for anything else? Have we thought about what else we could mine that data for?
Do you mean the feedback survey that we sent out?
Yeah.
Oh,
Just
yes.
all the data you've got, it's
Yes.
quite, like they talk about it being really powerful.
Yes.
So there must be more things that you can mine out of there. for other
Absolutely
things.
agree. Yes, we can and we will, especially when we get the final report back again. As I said at the beginning, we've got surveys here and the Citizens Assembly here. We've got a whole 40 different methods that we could use in the middle, and we certainly have got a lot of learnings from this and from that data that will help us inform which methods are working really well, and then we can set that alongside how much resource each of those methods takes and how many eyeballs we can get in front of it. So absolutely, yes, we can.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
Kia ora. Firstly, I want to congratulate all of you. This has been a wonderful project too. I was here when it was brought back to council, and I enjoyed gaining understanding about what you were trying to do and what you were trying to achieve. Providing that extra voice is very important for us as councillors. In terms of the data mining, just going to jump in there. I'm a researcher by trade, so I would hope that however you data mine that is in the context of why the questions were originally answered, not just data mined for the sake of data mining, and also just in reflection of some of the discussions that have been said today, because this is exactly why this workshop came about, is because more of us wanted to understand the processes. I think your processes have been really rigorous and robust, and I applaud you. I think that what you're trying to do here is going to provide us some really valuable information going forward, so tēnā koutou.
About a pool being a concrete pool. There was talk about overseas they going into stainless steel pools which last about 50 years, and it's a lot longer than concrete.
So, councillors, thank you very much. So we will bring the report to you then early in the new year, and then we will go from there. So thank you for your time, and thank you for our visitors for being here. Appreciate, and also the staff that's been involved in this assembly work. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.